4 penalties. Service here across. This falls kindly. Great rip. Great goal. Parker Roberts. And never count out the Gators. They lead here just after the midway point of the first half.
And this is exactly what we were talking about. Getting to the outside spaces for Florida, and the poor clearance from the Kentucky defenders. I almost thought this was too early of a ball from Cassie Lindley, but it went straight into the Kentucky defense. Caroline Trout just wasn't able to get a good enough height on it just to get it away, and just lands right to Parker Roberts. What a finish, and great decision just to hit it one time. Not much that Brooke Littman can do on that.
And look at this celebration from Parker Roberts. 4 blue shirts swarm into the box. Rose, service, header, goal! Under 2 minutes to go. The 10th goal is another equalizer. And they look again to Parker Roberts when it looked most dire. 5-5.
She's the engine of this team. She's been trying to cover defensively, and now she's covering offensively again for her second goal of the game. But that is, you got to close down Rose. She can pick out anyone, and there sits Parker Roberts wide open. You have to mark her as well. You can't let a player like that free to score a goal.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. If you're listening to us on another social media network, whatever it may be, thanks so much. We have another player on here that I've become fond of as being a Gators soccer fan and attended there many times. This is Parker Roberts. She is number 22, just graduated with 2 degrees. So congratulations to that, Parker. And we're excited to have you on to talk some soccer in general, Gators soccer, and even more.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's kick this around. Can you tell the viewers a little bit of when you developed your love for soccer?
Yeah, I started playing soccer when I was about 5, and I played a lot of other sports throughout my youth and my high school years. And I think it was around maybe my middle school years when I was 12 and turning 13 going into high school, I decided I kind of had to pick a sport now and focus on it. And it was always soccer, it was never going to be anything else. And I just had the love I had for it for my coaches and my friends and my teammates. That was definitely something that made it special. And on top of that, I just loved the game. I loved running around, and I could never get enough of it. When I was little, I would never take my cleats off in between games. I would just leave them on all day. So I think that my love for the game was just kind of there from the start, and it never really faded.
So you grew up in Kansas. Can you talk a little bit? And I'm from Rhode Island originally. So, we're a small state. We have a small soccer community up there. But, being from a state in the middle of the country, I don't hear much about, Kansas soccer in general. Can you talk about growing up in Kansas, playing there? Was it a big soccer community? I know that the pro team for the men, Sporting KC, I know the women's team over there was really good too. So can you discuss that? Has it grown within the past few years, or was it always there?
It has absolutely grown. When I was younger, it still was big. We always had we had the Wizards, and then we had Sporting KC on the men's side. And then we had FC KC as I got a little bit older, and then they moved to Utah, but now obviously they're back, and WSL KC is back in Kansas City for the women's game. And, it has always been big, but it's definitely grown. There's been a lot of good players coming out of there, especially as of late. Just all of the teams that they've grown so much. The college game there has grown a lot. And I think Kansas City is really cool itself. And I think downtown Kansas City has grown so much. And I think soccer has grown with that. I think it's been bringing people there. It's been attracting, more people to come live there and play there. And yeah, it's absolutely grown. But when I was little, everyone said the same thing. They're like, you're from Kansas. Like, especially when I came to Florida, they're like, Kansas, what's in Kansas? But believe it or not, it is actually my favorite place. I still call it home to me. And yeah, it's grown so much, and it's a really cool place. So if you ever have time to go visit, you absolutely should.
Okay. Parker Roberts here on Fire Breathing Rob, Gators soccer player number 22. Parker, as we keep going into the interview, we know you went to KU. Obviously, anybody that follows college sports knows that KU has one of the top basketball programs in the country. I've saw them play at Disney a couple times in Thanksgiving break. But besides the point, going to KU for soccer, playing in the Big 12, how was that? And also, what made you want to transfer from one big conference to arguably, and you played in the conference, not me, to one of the best soccer conferences in the country, with the SEC?
Well, originally I was committed to Miami, and then their
Okay.
coaches got fired, the coaches that recruited me. So I felt like I kind of had to start over. And I thought, what better way than to just stay close to home and represent kind of my home state? And I knew a lot of the girls already. So, I thought that'd be awesome. And it was, I had a great experience. And I wanted something a little bit different. I had been in Kansas my whole life since I was a little girl. And I just felt something was pulling me, telling me it was time to get out. And, I grew up around the Big 12, and their soccer has definitely grown as well. But I wanted to be a part of a conference like the SEC, and it was really pulling to me. So I made that change, but and I wouldn't change my journey for the world. I'm happy I spent that first year at Kansas, and it now led me to end up where I did. So yeah, I mean, great experiences in both places, just definitely different for sure. But I think that's important to you're not going to get it right always on the first try. And
Right.
so I'm just thankful that I learned what I did and I ended up where I did.
Gators soccer did have that tough year. I remember you sat out, I think, a game or two starting the year. We talked about the COVID tracing with the Gators soccer team throughout the year. And obviously, it hurts that camaraderie. You don't have that off season, which you usually do. And we always see, the Gators in the past having these great seasons, going to the NCAA tournament, even going to the Elite Eight and the Final Four sometimes. So can you talk about this year and how the contract tracing, the COVID, and even not having that regular off season really hurt you guys throughout the year?
It was definitely the most stressful period of our lives. We have never experienced anything like that. And COVID absolutely played, I think, the biggest role. And, other teams succeeded, which good for them. They were able to figure it out, but we just couldn't really figure it out right away with COVID and everything. And it just took a really big toll on our mental health. And I think that's really where it stood, was no one's mental health was really okay. And then when you try to combine that onto the field, and then, you just have people who are so uncomfortable, so uneasy, anxiety so high. And we didn't know we were having a season until maybe 2 weeks before. And so you go into practice every day and you're just like, are we having a season or not? What am I preparing for? We were only allowed to train like 3 times a week. So it's like, how are you preparing for a season when you can only practice for 3 times a week, on top of knowing like you don't know what's going to happen? And then with that, we had COVID testing 3 times a week, and I would be up all night worrying, am I going to test positive? Like, was I around someone that I didn't know if I was or not? So that was just really hard, you're just stressed the whole time. It's really hard to play a sport when you're already stressed off the field, and plus soccer's not easy. So, just combining all of these things, it's not easy at all. And then on top of that, we weren't allowed to hang out in groups off the field. So I couldn't, our team bonding is usually, oh, let's go to someone's house, let's go see a movie, let's do this. We couldn't do any of those things. And of course, Becky and them try to come up with creative ways, but at that point in the fall, everything was shut down. Like, we couldn't do anything. The UAA was saying no to anything we were trying to do for safety reasons, obviously. But it was just really tough. And I think the coaches were stressed too, because obviously you saw Becky missed, I want to say 2 games in there because of COVID tracing. And it was definitely a very difficult time. But I think by the time we learned to live with it, when spring came around and we learned to settle down, you could tell that's when we performed so much better. And we were more relaxed. We obviously had experienced COVID for almost a year at that point. So we were like, okay, we know kind of what to expect. And luckily we got through the spring with no COVID issues. We had none. And we still, I mean, it was still stressful because we couldn't hang out in groups of bigger than 10 people. And so when you're trying to hang out with your teammates and it's like, okay, well, there's already 10 people here, I'm going to go hang out with someone else. It's like, it's just hard because it's things you have to think about that you don't usually have to think about.
Well, the thing is, and I talked to Cameron Hall's dad, Stuart, and we had him on here to talk about his issues with COVID in general. But we talked about basically what you were saying and how hard it is. And you're in college, you have people around you. Obviously, you have your boyfriend and you have friends in general. And it's like, how do you have a social life? How do you hang out with them? Because obviously you care about your significant other. Obviously, you care about hanging with your friends, but you care about soccer too. So I mean, I know you say you were nervous staying up all night thinking about this, but how did you make these other relationships go? Specifically with, somebody like your boyfriend, who obviously you care about, but you can't keep track of him all day. He can't keep track of you all day where you guys have went. And then it's soccer season. So how did all that go?
Well, luckily my boyfriend played football. So
Right.
he was kind of in the same situation of, he didn't want to be around people because he didn't know, no one was going out at this point. Obviously, I wasn't worried about like bars or anything like that because no athletes were doing that. But so the reason I had to sit out that first game was because COVID was actually going around football, but we didn't know it at the time. And so my boyfriend ended up testing positive. And so then that put me in quarantine. And so that was kind of what happened. But it's so hard because I couldn't be mad at him because obviously I'm going to see him, we're each other's biggest support systems. We needed each other in that time and we're best friends. So it'd be really hard to just say, I'm not going to see you for however many months. Like we were absolute best friends. And so it was really hard. But you can't get mad in that situation. It's just kind of, you just have to keep being careful. And he wasn't even hanging out with his friends on the side or anything. He literally got it at football. And I can't blame him because I could have gotten into soccer. So, it's really hard. And we would have conversations. I would have conversations with Becky. She's like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, you're still going to see your boyfriend. I'm like, but good news is he already tested positive. So now we don't have to deal with it anymore. Because once you test positive, you didn't have to get tested again or anything. But it was just, it was crazy. I mean, it definitely felt stressed. I felt guilty at times hanging out with my boyfriend, which I think is hard. I felt guilty if I wanted to hang out with maybe some softball players or a volleyball player, I felt guilty almost, and then it would make me not hang out with them. I'd pull myself away and be like, I'm going to go home. And that was just really tough because you already are only with your team all the time. And I love my team to death, but anyone would say this, too much time together. And you start, you're like, I want to see someone else, or I just want to like hang out with someone else, but you couldn't. So you didn't have a social life really. Your social life was your team. And honestly, traveling was the most fun because I felt like we finally could kind of be close together. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a hard time, but I was just thankful, after that first game, I kind of found, okay, I'm going to hang out with these people on the team, just kind of make that like your little core group. So you don't worry if you see anyone else, and then I'll hang out with my boyfriend and that's it, You just have to set boundaries. And that's what we all did. We made a lot of sacrifices.
Anyway, I want to move on to this. So obviously Becky announced her retirement back in January, which was tough. I mean, she's been at Florida for so long. And obviously Vic, who was her right-hand man, was there for such a long time too. To see those two people go that have had so much impact and bringing in so many good players throughout, you go back to the early days with Wambach, Savannah, Jordan, we talk about you, of course, and obviously all the good players that are still there that will be staying with the program. What was the reaction to that when she finally told you guys, hey, this is the end of the era here with Becky Burley here in Florida?
It was really hard. I think especially I'm lucky in that I graduated anyway, so I was done. And the first thing I said to her was, thank you for waiting until I was graduating. She's just been my rock at Florida. She's been almost like a best friend as well as a coach, obviously on the field and off the field relationships, you separate the two, but off the field, she was just my go-to. I felt like I could go to her for anything. I'd pick up the phone at 9:30 at night and call her. If I didn't know how to handle a situation as a leader, I would call her. I'm like, how do I handle this? What do I do? I had her wife would help me out with anything I needed. She was always there for me. She even, when I was in quarantine, she dropped off a book at my hotel and was like, I think this could really help you. You know, just they're just those kind of people that you just want in your life, and they just push you to be better all the time. And even to this day, you know, I had a graduation little party the other day with just close friends, and I invited Becky, Vic, Alan, and then like our strength staff and all of that. I'm like, those are the people I want there, because they have literally done so much for me and given me so much. And when Becky first told us, I just started crying. I think I was honestly crying happy tears for her. I know this has been the hardest year ever. I cannot imagine coaching during this time, especially a pandemic. But I felt so much relief for her, happiness for her. I know she wants to travel. There's all these things she wants to do, but I also know how much she loves us and loves Gator soccer. She poured her heart and soul into this program, and it's definitely hard to see her walk away from something that she loves so dearly. I think that's what hurt me to see, was you can just tell it pained her to have to say that and tell us that. But I think now, you know, I think everyone's just happy for her. She gets to go do what she wants to do. She gets to go live her life, and she gave this program so much. And I think whoever follows in behind her has a really, really big shoes to fill. You know, that's going to be really tough, but I think she definitely left a lasting legacy on this program, and that's something you can't really say about many programs.
Well, I'm not going to press you on this, but obviously there's a new coach coming in. Like I said, I'm not going to press you on that. With that said, you know, there's a lot of these players are going to be returning. Obviously, some really good new recruits, and we saw a couple of them in the spring games, which was really impressive. With that said, you know, what is the outlook for the returning players and the new recruits coming in that you saw playing with some of these girls and knowing them personally for the 2021 season?
I think they're excited. There's a lot of anticipation, obviously, because they haven't announced the coach and nobody has any idea who it's going to be. So I think there's a lot of excited energy too. And obviously everyone's going to miss Becky and just having that support system. But I think everyone has kind of moved past the initial reaction, and they're like, okay, it's time to look forward now and just focus on getting better and being ready for when that new coach comes in, you know, making that first impression or being fit, being ready to go. So I think people are excited. I think there's a little bit of, I don't even know what you would call it, a little bit of anxious energy almost, just because they don't know who it's going to be. So, and honestly, like preseason for us basically starts during the summer. So it's like as soon as June rolls around, you know, you have June, July, but then you start playing in August. And so I think there's a little bit of just nervousness about that. But obviously it's going to be announced as soon as possible. And yeah, I think people are just ready to hit the ground running. We've had a long break now. And so I know people are definitely anxious to get back out there and just kind of get started again, and hopefully with some normalcy.
Right. No, I hear you. So before we switch gears, just to end that question off, any players that we should be looking out for next year to be more of an impact players? I know it's tough to say because the new coach hasn't been announced. Obviously, you don't know the style of play of that new coach, but any players that you would see, you know, being huge impacts next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kit Lafersky coming back for her final year, you know, she struggled with some injuries throughout her time, and she had another injury in the spring season, so she didn't really get to play. So I think she's going to be fired up, ready to go for her last season. I think Lainey Steed was playing so well in the midfield, and she's a player that I loved playing with. And, you know, I feel like we played really well together. So I'm really excited to watch her continuing to grow. I think Shay Seifert, she had an amazing spring season that we just had at center back, and it was awesome having her back there. I think she and Georgia and Sid Urban, you know, those backs back there are that's a really good combination. Yeah, so I'm really excited. I think I'm excited to watch and just continue to watch everyone grow. It's going to be weird watching from the sidelines or from like the TV, but I'm really excited. It's going to be awesome.
So I want to switch gears, talk about some, as we end the interview, switching gears toward the NWSL and soccer in general. We know, and I've interviewed a couple I interviewed Gabby Seidler, who I'm sure you know. I've interviewed Kristen Edmonds. I think she's on KC now. And they talk about, you know, how hard it is to really be financially successful, I guess we should say, in this league, even if you're a great player, because the pay grade is so low. A lot of these players have to live with either someone or a host family. Talking to players that you know that play in this league, Are you hearing the same things? Is it really that hard to live as far as on a salary of an NWSL player?
Yeah, I mean, I know so many. I love watching the games because I know so many players on each team and it's so fun to watch, but I don't ask them about it just because I already know that it's low. So,
Yeah.
but I know they love the game enough that it doesn't matter to them. And I have talked to Gabby before about it because obviously when I had to decide kind of my next step and I was kind of going back and forth, I reached out to her and she did say, she was like, you really have to love it and you have to want to be there because it doesn't pay well. So you have to be willing to kind of accept that part. But if you love it and you want to be there and it's what you want to be doing, then it's not a big deal because you make it work.
Well, it's more of a pay equity thing we saw during the women's Final Four. I mean, there was that famous picture of the gyms, which those weights were a total joke. And then you look at the men's gym that is really huge. I mean, we see this throughout college campuses, whether it's gym time, money, and the list goes on and on. Being at Florida, how has that experience been for you?
I mean, I'm lucky, at Florida, everyone's loved. We are all treated very well. The only issue that we had was we didn't have a locker room for a really long time because we were switching venues from our old field to the current field where we share with lacrosse. So I think that was the only really frustrating part when you see football getting like a however many $billion new facility.
Right.
But you also have to remember, like football's money is they give us the money, and it's difficult at times, but also we didn't have the best seasons that we necessarily wanted to. And I'm not saying that we didn't deserve to have a locker room because we absolutely did. We're working just as hard as these other athletes, but it does when it comes down to money. I don't know anything about our budget. I don't know anything about the money that football brings in or the money that they give to us. So really, there's probably so many factors that goes into it that it's really easy for us to sit here and be like, oh, we're not being treated equally, which I've seen it. I've absolutely seen it. I've seen it in other little ways and all of that. But I think the bigger issue is with the NCAA as a whole. I mean, you saw that weight room. That was ridiculous. Like that made me, not a lot of things can really like make me mad like that. And that really made me mad. That's just so unfair as a woman to go in there and you're competing for a national championship and that's what you see. Yeah. And you're in a bubble. So you're there for however many weeks. Like you need to work out, you need to get strong. And then you see the men's weight room and you're just like, you're kidding, right? Like, that's absolutely insane. And so I just think, yeah, that really made me mad. But I think that's where we have to fix it is from the top first. And we can fix it within our schools and everything. But the NCAA has got to be better about that. And that's that. And even with like the women's national team, the pay difference is there. It's got to start from those places to create change.
I agree 100%. I've heard a lot about athletes being paid. Obviously, you do get that scholarship, the school is paid for, but the amount of time, whether it's a football player, as in your boyfriend, or yourself as a soccer player, the training hours that go into this and the mental abuse and the physical abuse of your body that's going on, through doing school and practicing and games. So this is really tough. It's like a job, and it's, if you don't have that time management, as you know, and as I do as a college student, and know how to process, doing your homework, getting good grades, and also, playing great soccer, then you're not going to make it in college at all. So what is your opinion on college athletes getting paid? Should it be all college athletes?
I absolutely believe that every single athlete should have an opportunity to be paid. And it's not the university paying athletes. I think that's where people get it wrong. It's not the universities coming in and saying, I'm going to go give the basketball team and football team money. It's outside brands that are trying to connect with athletes. So I think every athlete should have that opportunity. I get it. Football players might get more opportunities because of who they are. Basketball, I get that. But give everyone the same opportunity. There are people in Gainesville who love women's soccer. But you would never know because they don't have the chance to connect with athletes and try to connect and do something together and give an opportunity for an athlete to come impact the community and then make money. And I'm actually working now. I just started with a team called Icon Source. And they are awesome. They're ex-athletes, their goal is to protect the athletes while allowing them to connect with brands. So our whole thing is, I'm really excited about this project. Our whole thing is we're trying to get athletes to sign up and to understand like there's a possibility for every single athlete. And it's awesome because the team at Icon Source is also focusing on platforms, or not platforms, but advertising and just how to get female athletes. They're focusing on female athletes as a whole too, saying, this is an opportunity for female athletes too, not just these football players and everyone. And there's so much energy within Icon Source, and we are so excited about it. We're really trying to just spread the news because this is going to be the platform that brands sign up for and athletes. And then all the brands have to do is reach out to the athletes and say, hey, I was wondering if you can come, sign some cards here and we'll pay you this amount, come to whatever it is, maybe a restaurant in Gainesville, or come to a coffee shop, or whatever it may be. And it's just an awesome way to finally be able to create something to where athletes feel safe while doing this, because they're not going to hurt their eligibility and they're not going through the school. It's so easy. This platform is going to be awesome. Just a really easy way for athletes to be able to connect with brands and to do so in a safe way. Our biggest thing is we want to protect the athlete, and because that's most important. You want to make sure they're being treated well by brands, getting paid when they're supposed to. And so I'm so excited for it. I absolutely think athletes should be paid, and it's going into effect the 1st of July. I wish they would have done this like 5 years ago, because it is even, it's not just about the money too. It's a way to get involved in the community and just to meet new people and network. And I think that's so important. And as an athlete, that's something you're not allowed to do really, because in the past it's been, well, I don't think I'm allowed to do this because of compliance. And so it's just, you don't have a chance to really network in the ways that you want to. And so now I feel like the opportunities are just endless, and I could not be more excited for the younger athletes to have this opportunity.
Right. I agree with you 100%. If you went to a Gators soccer game, like I have many games, that stadium is pretty packed. Obviously not this year because of COVID and the restrictions of how many people can go in. But no, I agree with you. And I think it's a lot to do with, like you said, the NCAA doesn't push women's soccer. They push men's soccer. They push football. They push men's basketball. So, there is a sexist element, if we're going to be truthful to each other, as far as that goes and where the money goes and stuff. And, we talk about being in some inclusive society, but we don't really build up women's sports as much as we do for men's. I hear a lot of girls saying, the parents saying, I want my girl to only play club, period. She's going to get the best opportunities if she pays for a good club. And that's how she could get to play at Florida or UCLA or Stanford, UCF, wherever it may be. What is your opinion on that? Did you play high school and club, or do you specifically play club? Or rather, did you specifically play club? Do you think it's better to play one than the other? What is your opinion on, playing club or high school? What's better?
I'm a huge advocate for high school soccer. I think the problem with our country is we try to get our kids scholarships before they even know they want to keep playing soccer.
Right.
When they start playing competitively, they're 10 years old. Our parents are thinking, well, what school, how are we going to get them a scholarship? And it's like, did you even ask them if that's what they wanted? You're deciding that for them. You're putting them in these environments that are probably super unhealthy with coaches you don't even know. And so it's like, you're choosing that over their mental health, basically, and their excitement for the game. I'm so lucky that when I was little, my parents put me in like 10 different sports. They said, go have fun, figure out what you like, what you want to do, go, and we'll support you. And then if I didn't feel comfortable with a coach when I was little, I'm so lucky. I found Derek Shore when I was 12 years old. My sister played for him before that. And then he took over our team, and I'm just so lucky that he supported us with high school soccer as well. He just wanted us to be happy, and the environment he created, obviously pushing us to be the absolute best players. And he's literally what got me to Florida. but I loved high school soccer. It was one of my favorite times of the year. You know, you're playing for your school, you're playing for your friends who finally get to see you do something that you love. And I think I mean, also ECNL and all of that, I don't even know what's there these days, DA or something. I don't even know. But that wasn't a big deal when I played. And then as towards the end of my high school years, I found a lot of people starting to drop out of high school soccer because they wanted to just play ECNL or whatnot year round. But for me, that's just, yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then great. And if you're all in on just focusing on DA, ECNL and doing that, then that's what you choose. But I played high school soccer all 4 years. I absolutely loved it. I loved my coach. We had a great connection and he was just a great person. He grew my love for the game and for my teammates around me. I finally got to play soccer with girls that I went to school with. And I had never done that before because my club teammates didn't go to my high school. And it was just the coolest thing for me. You know, you get to kind of show off for your high school and your teachers, they get to see you. And I think it's just a really cool experience playing for your school because if not, you miss out on that. And I think those are really important things you're missing out on. You know, my favorite memories from high school soccer, the bus rides, the trips, the sleepovers after games or going to get food after games. And it's just, those were some of my favorite memories. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I would absolutely go back and play high school soccer every single year.
And
you can still play. And I mean, I made it on the national team and to Florida by playing just regular old club soccer. I was in the MRL and then National League. And so it's like, you can do whatever you want. Just be proactive too. You know, I got seen by the national team through ODP. I don't even know if kids still do that, but I loved it. I made so many awesome friends. And that's really how I got seen. So you just, if you are going to choose to do ECNL and all that year round, that's great. But also think about just the memories that you're going to create because my high school memories are my favorite and I still made it to where I am. So there's other ways to do it besides just being all in on DA and ECNL.
well, Parker, I want to thank you for your time. I didn't think we were going to go this long. I was thinking it was only going to be 20 minutes, but you are a breath of fresh air. And thanks so much for talking to me and everybody else that's going to be listening to this. And if you're listening, please subscribe, like, and share this video once we get this up. Parker, as we end, can you tell people where they can find more about you, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, and also if you want to talk again about Icon, I know you're involved in that too. Whatever you want to talk about where people can find more about you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to Facebook friend me, go ahead. I think I'm not private on anything, so just look up Parker Roberts. You should be able to see it. I post pretty often, not pretty often, but you know, I'll post an update with what I'm doing with my life. I don't know how exciting it'll be for the next few months, but yeah, just feel free to check in. And yeah, I'm currently just working with Icon Source, and I recommend I don't know if any college athletes are listening to this, but absolutely check it out. It's a great platform I'm on it. I'm talking to all my teammates about signing up for it. There's tons of football athletes already signed up for it, you know, just a great way to connect with brands. And we're really excited about this. You know, it's the biggest legislation change in sports in over 100 years. And finally, this is something we've been waiting for a long time. So I think it's time to make a big impact and just go for it.
What's the website for it?
It's called Icon Source.
Okay,
it's a website and there's an app for it. So you can read all about it and learn whatever you need to learn. But it's awesome. It's created by athletes for athletes. So we understand, we get it. We know exactly what you're going through. We are protecting the athletes. You know, no one's going to get in trouble. No one's going to get scammed by a brand. That's not going to happen. So we're here to protect the athletes and connect them with any brands that would like to make a deal with them.
Florida Gators soccer player Parker Roberts, number 22, winding out her career at Florida. Parker, again, thanks so much. Hopefully we can do this again down the road, a little bit of a shorter time, but I appreciate you. I didn't think we were going to go this long, like I said, but you know, you explained a lot of stuff from soccer to mental health to everything else in between. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.